What if that old, dirty nickel hiding in your drawer is secretly worth thousands of dollars? Most people ignore worn coins, but some battered Jefferson nickel pieces have stunned collectors with shocking values. A rare 1939 double die, a 1942 to 1945 silver, war nickel, or a 1950D low mintage issue could turn pocket change into a payday. Even scratched and tarnished examples have sold for jaw-dropping prices at auction. The real thrill? These treasures still circulate today. What if I told you that a dark, old, dirty 1948 Jefferson nickel sitting in a forgotten jar could be worth big money? Not just 5 cents, not even $50, but hundreds, thousands, and in rare cases, a life-changing value. Before you roll your eyes, stay with me, because this is one of those hidden treasure stories that serious collectors whisper about. The 1948 Jefferson nickel was struck at the legendary San Francisco Mint during a fascinating time in American history. World War II was over. The famous Silver War nickels had just ended in 1945, and the mint had returned to the normal copper-nickel composition. But 1948 wasn't just another year. Production numbers were far lower than earlier wartime years, especially in San Francisco. That's where things get interesting. Only about 11 million 1948 nickels were minted. That might sound like a lot, but in coin collecting terms, that's actually a modest number. Compare that to modern nickels struck in the hundreds of millions. Scarcity is the first ingredient in big money. Now here's where the suspense kicks in. Most 1948 nickels you'll find are worn. They're dull. They're dirty. They've lived in pockets, vending machines, and cash registers for decades. But if you find one in high grade, especially with sharp details on Monticello and strong steps on the reverse, you could be looking at serious hidden treasure. Let me explain something critical. Full steps. Flip the coin over and look at Monticello, the home of Thomas Jefferson. See the steps at the base? On most circulated coins, those steps are flat, blended, or weak. But on rare, well-struck examples, you can clearly see 5 or even 6 separate steps. These are called full steps nickels, and collectors go crazy for them. And when I say crazy, I mean big money. A high-grade 1948 with full steps has sold for thousands of dollars at major auctions, including sales handled by Heritage Auctions. In top condition, graded MS66 or higher with full steps, prices have climbed well above $10,000. Think about that. From 5 cents to over 10 grand. That's the kind of life-changing value that keeps collectors searching. But wait, it gets even more shocking. There are error varieties. One of the most talked about is the S/D mint mark variety. That's right, an S mint mark punched over a D. This happened when a die intended for Denver was repurposed or corrected for San Francisco. Under magnification, you can sometimes see traces of a D underneath the S. If you find a genuine 1948 S/D nickel in solid condition, you're not just holding a coin. You're holding hidden treasure worth hundreds to thousands of dollars, depending on grade. Even circulated examples can bring $200 to $500. In mint state, we're talking $1,000 or more. Now I want you to lean in for this part. Another overlooked detail is the rim. Check the rim for sharpness and uniform thickness. A strong strike will have a bold, crisp rim. Weak strikes tend to have flat areas. Also look for off-center strikes. A 1948 nickel struck 10% to 20% off-center, with the date still visible, can sell for several $100s. More dramatic errors? Even more big money. And don't ignore color. Yes, color matters. A typical circulated nickel will appear gray or dull, but an uncirculated example might show original luster. Almost a soft, cartwheel shine when tilted under light. Some even develop beautiful golden or rainbow toning over decades. Natural toning, not artificial. Those attract premium bids from advanced collectors. Let's reset your attention with something truly shocking. In the early 2000s, collectors largely ignored 1948 nickels unless they were pristine. But as registry set competition heated up, collectors battling for the finest known examples, prices exploded. High-grade coins once selling for a few $100s suddenly jumped into the thousands. Why? Because population reports showed how few truly high-end examples existed. That's the key lesson here, condition rarity. Even though 11 million were minted, Only a tiny fraction survived in near-perfect condition with full steps. That tiny fraction is where the big money lives. Now let's make this practical for you. Here's exactly how to identify a valuable 1948 Jefferson nickel. First, check the date. It must read 1948. Second, look to the right of Monticello on the reverse for the small S mint mark. That tells you it was struck in San Francisco. Third, examine the steps under Monticello with a magnifying glass. You want clear, uninterrupted lines. No major nicks or blending. Fourth, inspect the mint mark closely. Does it look doubled? Tilted? Is there any sign of another letter underneath? That could indicate the S over D variety. Fifth, check for doubling in the lettering. While not as famous as some double dies from other years, minor hub doubling can add value. And finally, assess overall preservation. Are Jefferson's cheek and jawline sharp? Is Monticello's roof defined? Are the windows visible? These details separate a $2 coin from a $2,000 coin. Let's talk numbers. A heavily worn 1948 nickel, maybe $1 to $3. A lightly circulated example, $10 to $25. Uncirculated without full steps, $50 to $200 depending on grade. Full steps in high mint state, thousands. Rare error varieties, hundreds to thousands. And the finest known examples? They flirt with 5 figures, real auction records, real collectors, real money. But here's what makes this story even more inspiring. Most people overlook dirty coins. They assume grime equals no value. That's a mistake. Cleaning a coin can actually destroy its value. A naturally aged, untouched surface is exactly what serious collectors want. So if you find one, don't scrub it. Don't polish it. That old, dark look might be protecting your hidden treasure. Imagine this scenario. You're sorting through a box of inherited coins. You almost skip over a worn 1948 nickel. But you remember this video. You grab a magnifier. You check the steps. They're sharp. You inspect the mint mark, and you see something unusual beneath that S. Your heart starts racing. That's the moment collectors live for. That's the possibility of life-changing value hiding in plain sight. And here's the cliffhanger. What if the 1948 nickel in your possession isn't just a standard issue, but one of the few surviving top population full steps examples that registry collectors are desperately hunting right now? You won't know unless you check. So tonight, before you ignore that old jar of nickels, take 5 minutes. Look for 1948. Look for the S. Study the steps. Study the mint mark. Because big money doesn't announce itself. Hidden treasure doesn't glow in the dark. It waits quietly, sometimes for decades. And who knows? The next life-changing value story might start with you finding a small, old, dirty 1948 Jefferson nickel. If you love discovering big money coins and uncovering hidden treasure hiding in everyday change, make sure you subscribe. Because the next coin we reveal might be even more shocking than this one. What if I told you that a grimy, forgotten 1954 Jefferson nickel hiding in a kitchen drawer could be worth big money? Not just a few bucks, not even a few hundred, but thousands of dollars in the right condition. And in rare cases, the kind of life-changing value that makes collectors' hearts pound? Most people would laugh at the idea. It's just a nickel, right? But if you've been following this channel, you already know better. Hidden treasure doesn't always glitter. Sometimes it looks old, dull, and completely ordinary. Let's go back to 1954. America was deep in the post-war boom. Cars were bigger, suburbs were expanding, and coinage was flowing through the economy faster than ever. That year, Jefferson nickels were struck at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and the legendary San Francisco Mint. But here's where things get interesting and potentially profitable. The 1954 Jefferson nickel had one of the lowest mintages of the early 1950s series, just over 29 million coins. That may sound like a lot, but in the world of mid-century nickels, it's surprisingly modest. And when you factor in how many were heavily circulated, damaged, or melted over time, the number of high-quality survivors drops dramatically. Now lean in, because this is where the big money starts to reveal itself. The key phrase you must remember is full steps. Turn the coin over. Look at Monticello. At the base of the building are the steps leading up to the entrance. On most 1954 nickels, especially from San Francisco, the strike was weak. Those steps are often mushy, blended, or completely flat. But if you find a 1954 S with 5 or 6 fully separated steps, clear, sharp, and uninterrupted, you may be holding hidden treasure. High-grade 1954 S full steps nickels have sold for thousands of dollars at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions. In top grades such as MS66 or higher with full steps, prices have climbed into the five-figure range. That's right, over $10,000 for a coin most people would toss into a tip jar without a second thought. Let that sink in. From 5 cents to life-changing value. But wait, there's more. Because 1954 isn't just about full steps. Let's reset your attention with something shocking. The 1954 Jefferson nickel from the Denver Mint is known for strike issues as well. Many were weakly struck, especially on Jefferson's hair and the steps of Monticello. So when a sharply struck example appears, collectors notice immediately. In high mint state grades, especially with strong steps, these coins can reach into the thousands. It's not just about rarity in numbers, it's about rarity in condition. Condition rarity equals big money. Now here's something most casual collectors completely overlook: doubled dies. While 1954 isn't as famous as some dramatic double die years, there are recognized minor double die varieties. Look closely at the lettering on the obverse: "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Under magnification, you might see slight separation or shadow-like doubling. On confirmed examples, values can range from $50 to several $100s depending on clarity and condition. And then we get to repunched mint marks, RPMs. This is where things get really exciting. In 1954, mint marks were still punched into the die by hand. That means mistakes happened. An S, punched slightly off position, then corrected. A D struck twice at different angles. Under magnification, you might see extra metal, a shadow, or notches around the mint mark. Certain 1954 S RPM varieties have sold for $100 to $500 in strong condition. Combine that with mint state preservation, and you're suddenly talking about serious hidden treasure. Now I want you to imagine something. You're holding an old, dirty 1954 nickel. It looks dark. Maybe it's been sitting in a coin jar for decades. Most people would clean it. That would be a mistake. Cleaning destroys collector value. That original surface, even if it's toned or slightly grimy, can be exactly what serious buyers want. Natural toning, especially golden, champagne, or rainbow hues, can dramatically increase desirability. Some attract aggressive bidding when certified and graded by services like Professional Coin Grading Service or Numismatic Guarantee Company. And here's another shocker. In registry set competitions, collectors compete to assemble the finest known examples of each date and mint. When population reports show only a handful of 1954 S nickels graded at the highest levels with full steps, bidding wars erupt. That's when prices jump from hundreds to thousands overnight. Real auction records don't lie. High-grade certified 1954 S full steps nickels have crossed the auction block for over $10,000. That's documented, recorded, and verified. Not hype, not rumors. Real big money. Now let's slow down for a moment and make this practical for you. Here's exactly how to identify a potentially valuable 1954 Jefferson nickel. First, check the date. It must read 1954. Second, flip it over and look for the mint mark to the right of Monticello. No mint mark means Philadelphia. A D means Denver. An S means San Francisco. Third, examine the steps at the base of Monticello with at least a 5x to 10x magnifier. You're looking for 5 or 6 clearly separated lines. No heavy nicks cutting across them. Fourth, inspect the mint mark for signs of repunching. Look for extra edges, doubling, or unusual shapes. Fifth, check Jefferson's portrait. Is the hair above his ear sharp? Is the cheek smooth and well-defined? Weak details usually mean lower value. Sixth, study the rim. A strong strike produces a crisp, even rim. Off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing but the date is visible, can bring hundreds of dollars depending on severity. Let's talk numbers, because I know that's what you're waiting for. A heavily worn 1954 nickel? Maybe 25 cents to a couple of dollars. A nice uncirculated example? $20 to $100. A certified mint state coin with strong steps? Several hundred. A high-grade 1954 S with full steps? Thousands. A top population registry quality example? 5 figures. That's the jump from pocket change to life-changing value. Now here's the emotional truth behind all of this. Some of the most valuable coins today were once ignored, tossed into jars, stored in cigar boxes, passed down without a second thought. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary often comes down to knowledge. You now know what to look for. You know about full steps. You know about repunched mint marks. You know about strike quality, rim sharpness, and natural toning. And that knowledge turns an old, dirty nickel into a potential hidden treasure. So tonight, I want you to do something simple but powerful. Open that coin jar. Pull out every 1954 Jefferson nickel you can find. Check the mint mark. Study the steps. Look closely at the lettering. Because somewhere out there, in a drawer, a safe, or a forgotten collection, a 1954 Jefferson nickel is waiting to shock its owner with big money potential. And here's the cliffhanger. What if the one you already have is a high-grade, underappreciated full steps example that registry collectors are desperately searching for right now? You won't know unless you look. If you love uncovering hidden treasure and discovering coins with life-changing value, make sure you subscribe and stay with this channel. The next coin we reveal could be sitting in your pocket right now, and it might be worth even more than this one. What if I told you that a dirty, scratched 1962 D. Jefferson nickel sitting in your change right now could be worth big money? Not $1, not $100, but thousands in the right condition. Most people would never look twice. But today, that ordinary 5-cent coin might turn into hidden treasure. Let's go back to 1962. America was in the middle of the Cold War. Vending machines were everywhere. Coins were moving fast through the economy. The Denver Mint struck over 280 million Jefferson nickels that year. That sounds common, right? Massive mintage. Nothing special. But here's where the mystery begins. Despite the high production, 1962 D nickels are surprisingly difficult to find in top condition. Many were weakly struck. The steps on Monticello often came out flat. The metal quality varied. And because nickels were heavily used in daily commerce, pristine examples became scarce very quickly. And scarcity in high grade equals big money. Now lean in closely, because this is where collectors start paying attention. Flip your 1962 D nickel over. Look at Monticello. Focus on the steps at the base of the building. Most 1962 D nickels show weak or blended steps. But if you find one with 5 or 6 fully separated, uninterrupted steps, what collectors call full steps, you may be holding a coin worth thousands. In fact, certified high-grade 1962 D full steps nickels have sold for over $10,000 at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions. Let that sink in. A coin that millions ignored, selling for 5 figures because of strike quality and preservation. That's life-changing value hiding in plain sight. But wait, don't stop there. Here's a shocking twist. 1962 was one of the last years before mint marks were temporarily removed from U.S. coins in 1965. That means the D mint mark on your coin was still hand-punched into the die. And whenever mint marks are punched by hand, mistakes can happen. Repunched mint marks, RPMs. Look closely at the D on your 1962 nickel. Under magnification, do you see doubling? A shadow? A slight notch or extra metal around the letter? That could indicate a repunched mint mark variety. Some confirmed 1962 D RPM nickels have sold for $50 to $300 in circulated condition and much more in mint state. Combine that with full steps, and now you're talking serious hidden treasure. Now let's reset your attention again. Most collectors assume that because 1962 D had a huge mintage, it can't be valuable. That assumption has cost people thousands. Why? Because condition rarity is more important than mintage numbers. Population reports from grading services like Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Company show that only a tiny fraction of 1962 D nickels survive in the highest mint state grades with full steps intact. That tiny fraction is where the big money lives. Let's get practical. Here's exactly how you identify a valuable 1962 D Jefferson nickel. First, check the date on the obverse. It must read 1962. Second, look to the right of Monticello on the reverse for the D mint mark. No mint mark means Philadelphia. You want the Denver issue. Third, examine the steps under Monticello with at least a 5x to 10x magnifier. You're looking for 5 or 6 clean, uninterrupted lines. Even a small nick crossing those steps can reduce the designation. Fourth, inspect Jefferson's portrait. Is the hair above his ears sharply defined? Is the cheek smooth and full of luster? Weak detail usually means lower grade. Fifth, check for doubling in the lettering. Look at "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Slight separation or shadowing may indicate a doubled die variety, which can bring $100 or more depending on clarity. Sixth, study the rim. A strong strike produces a bold, even rim all the way around. Off-center errors, where part of the design is missing but the date remains visible, can sell for several $100s, especially if the error is dramatic. Now here's another shocking fact. Some 1962 D nickels exhibit die cracks or cut errors, raised lines or blobs of metal caused by damaged dies. While minor cracks may add small premiums, large cuts can bring $100 to $500 or more depending on size and eye appeal. Imagine pulling a worn, dark nickel from a roll and spotting a bold cud near the rim. That's not damage. That's potential hidden treasure. And let's talk about color. Most 1962 D nickels you find will look gray and lifeless, but an uncirculated example may display strong cartwheel luster when tilted under light. Some develop beautiful champagne or golden toning over decades. Natural toning, never artificial, can increase desirability significantly. Here's something emotional and powerful to think about. Registry set collectors compete fiercely for the finest known examples. When a 1962 D full steps nickel graded MS66 or higher appears at auction, bidding wars erupt. Prices jump from hundreds to thousands in minutes. Real auction records prove it. High-end examples have crossed the block for well into 5 figures. That's not speculation. That's documented sales history. From 5 cents to over $10,000. That's the definition of big money. Now let's break down realistic value ranges so you understand the spectrum. A heavily circulated 1962 D nickel, maybe 10 to 25 cents. A nice uncirculated example without full steps, $10 to $50. A strong mint state coin with attractive luster, $100 or more. A certified full steps example in high grade, thousands. A top population registry coin, potentially 5 figures. That's the leap from pocket change to life-changing value. And here's the inspirational truth. Most of these coins are still out there. They're in old bank rolls, estate collections, forgotten drawers, inherited boxes that haven't been opened in decades. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is knowledge, and now you have it. So tonight, I want you to check every 1962 D Jefferson nickel you can find. Look for sharp steps. Look for repunched mint marks. Look for doubling. Look for strong rims and original luster. Because hidden treasure doesn't announce itself. It waits quietly, disguised as something ordinary. And here's the cliffhanger. What if the next 1962 D nickel you examine turns out to be one of the finest known full steps examples, worth more than a month's salary, or even more than your car? You won't know unless you look. If you love discovering big money coins and uncovering life-changing value hiding in everyday change, make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. The next coin we reveal might be sitting in your pocket right now, and it could be worth even more than this one. What if I told you that a dirty 1965 Jefferson nickel in your pocket right now could be worth big money? Not 5 cents, not $50, but thousands. And in rare cases, the kind of life-changing value that makes headlines. It sounds impossible. 1965? That's common. That's modern. That's pocket change. But 1965 is not just another year. 1965 was the year everything changed in American coinage. Silver was disappearing from circulation. The Coinage Act had just removed silver from dimes and quarters. Panic, hoarding, confusion. People were pulling coins out of circulation by the handful. And right in the middle of that chaos, the U.S. Mint made a controversial decision. They removed mint marks. That's right. In 1965, no U.S. coins carried mint marks. No D, no S. Nothing. The goal was to discourage collectors from hoarding specific mint issues. Every 1965 Jefferson nickel looks the same at first glance. But here's the twist. Because of the production pressure and the rushed manufacturing, mistakes happened. And mistakes are where hidden treasure is born. Over 136 million 1965 nickels were struck. That sounds massive, but condition is everything. Most were heavily used. Most were weakly struck. Most have flat steps on Monticello and dull surfaces. But if you find one in exceptional condition, with sharp details and full steps, you may be staring at big money. Flip the coin over right now. Look at Monticello. Focus on the steps at the base. Most 1965 nickels have weak, mushy steps, but a rare few show 5 or even 6 fully separated lines. Collectors call this full steps. And when a 1965 full steps nickel appears in high mint state grade, bidding can explode. Coins certified by Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Company in top grades with full steps have sold for thousands of dollars. That's documented auction history, including sales through heritage auctions, from 5 cents to over $5,000 in some cases. Now let's reset your attention, because this gets even more shocking. Even though mint marks were officially removed in 1965, a small number of special mint sets were produced later. These 1965 SMS nickels are different. They have sharper strikes, more satin-like surfaces, and often stronger detail. And here's where collectors' hearts start racing. A 1965 SMS Jefferson nickel with full steps, graded at the very top of the population, has sold for well over $10,000. That's life-changing value hiding in what looks like an ordinary coin. So how do you tell the difference between a regular 1965 nickel and a special mint set coin? Look at the surface. Regular business strikes tend to look dull, sometimes grainy. SMS coins have a more polished, satin finish. The details on Jefferson's hair are sharper. The fields are smoother. And the rims are often more squared and crisp. Now let's talk about errors, because 1965 is full of them. With production under pressure and dies wearing out quickly, double dies appeared. Look carefully at In God We Trust and Liberty. Under magnification, do you see separation or shadowing? A true double die 1965 nickel can sell for $100 to $500 or more, depending on clarity and grade. And then there are off-center strikes. A 1965 nickel struck 10% to 20% off-center, with the full date visible, can easily command $200 to $600. More dramatic off-centers? Even more big money. But here's something most people completely overlook. Die cracks and cuts. Because dies were used longer than usual in 1965, cracks developed. Some coins show raised lines across the surface. Others have bold cut errors, thick blobs of metal near the rim where part of the die broke away. Large cut errors on 1965 nickels have sold for hundreds of dollars. That ugly blob on the edge of your coin might not be damage, it might be hidden treasure. Now let's slow down and make this practical. Here's exactly how to check your 1965 Jefferson nickel. First, confirm the date reads 1965. Second, remember there should be no mint mark. If you see one, something is wrong or extremely interesting. Third, examine the steps on Monticello with a 5x to 10x magnifier. Look for 5 or 6 fully separated steps. Fourth, inspect Jefferson's portrait. Is the hair above his ear detailed? Is the cheek smooth and full of original luster? Fifth, check the lettering for doubling. Sixth, study the rim. Is it sharp and squared? Or weak and rounded? Seventh, tilt the coin under light. Does it show strong cartwheel luster? Or does it have a satin finish suggesting SMS origin? Now here's another shocking fact to wake you up. Because 1965 coins lack mint marks, many collectors ignored them for decades. They focused on earlier silver coins or key dates. That means high-grade 1965 nickels were not widely saved. They circulated. They wore down. They disappeared into everyday commerce. So when a pristine example surfaces today, registries set collectors compete aggressively. That's when prices climb from hundreds to thousands, sometimes in minutes. Imagine finding a bright, sharply struck 1965 nickel in an old roll from the bank. You check the steps. They're fully defined. You notice the satin texture. You send it for grading. Weeks later, it comes back in an ultra-high grade with full steps. Suddenly, that worthless nickel becomes a life-changing value coin. Let's break down realistic numbers. A worn 1965 nickel? 5 to 25 cents. A nice uncirculated example? $10 to $50. A strong mint state coin with great luster? $100 or more. A certified full steps example in high grade? Thousands. A top-grade SMS full steps example? Potentially over $10,000. That's not hype. That's real auction data. And here's the emotional truth. Most hidden treasure doesn't look special at first. It looks ordinary. It looks dirty. It looks like something you'd spend without thinking. But knowledge changes everything. You now know that 1965 was a transitional year. You know about missing mint marks. You know about full steps. You know about doubled dies, cuds, off-center strikes, and SMS finishes. And that knowledge could turn a common coin into big money. So tonight, I want you to check every 1965 Jefferson nickel you can find. Check the steps. Check the lettering. Check the rims. Look at the surface carefully. Because somewhere out there, a 1965 nickel is waiting to shock its owner with hidden treasure status. And here's the cliffhanger. What if the next 1965 nickel you pull from your change jar isn't just another coin, but one of the finest known examples in existence? You won't know unless you look. If you love uncovering big money coins and discovering life-changing value hiding in everyday change, make sure you subscribe and stay with us. The next coin we reveal might be even more shocking, and it could already be sitting in your pocket right now. What if I told you that a dirty 1970 D. Jefferson nickel hiding in your loose change could be worth big money? Not $1, not $100, but thousands if it has the right details. Most people spend them without a second thought. But today, that old, dull 5-cent coin could turn into hidden treasure. Let's go back to 1970. The Vietnam War was ongoing. The Apollo missions were making history. And at the Denver Mint, more than 238 million Jefferson nickels were struck for circulation. On paper, that sounds incredibly common. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Most 1970 D nickels were poorly struck. The dies were overused. The steps on Monticello came out weak. Jefferson's hair detail often looked flat. And because nickels circulate heavily, high-grade survivors are far rarer than the mintage suggests. And that's where the big money begins. Flip your coin over right now. Look at Monticello. Focus on the steps at the base. On most 1970 D nickels, those steps blend together into a flat line. But if you see 5 or 6 clearly separated, uninterrupted steps, what collectors call full steps, you could be holding a coin worth thousands. High-grade 1970 D full steps nickels have sold at major auctions, including events hosted by Heritage Auctions, for eye-opening prices. Certified examples graded at the top levels by Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Company have reached into the 4-figure, and in elite cases, 5-figure, range. From 5 cents to over $5,000. That's life-changing value hiding in something most people call pocket change. But wait, it gets even more shocking. In 1970, mint marks were still punched by hand into the die. That means repunched mint marks, RPMs, exist. Look closely at the D mint mark to the right of Monticello. Under magnification, you might notice doubling, notching, or a shadow effect around the letter. Certain 1970 D RPM varieties can sell for $75 to $300 in uncirculated grades. And if that same coin also has full steps, the value can jump dramatically. Now let's reset your attention again. Because of heavy die use in 1970, die cracks and cut errors are also known. A cut appears as a raised blob of metal along the rim where part of the die broke away. Many people mistake these for damage. But collectors see opportunity. A strong cut error on a 1970 D nickel can sell for hundreds of dollars, depending on size and eye appeal. That ugly-looking bump near the rim might actually be hidden treasure. And what about off-center strikes? A 1970 D nickel struck 10% to 20% off-center, with the full date visible, can bring $200 to $600. More dramatic examples can climb even higher. That's big money for what most people consider a mistake. Now here's something emotional to think about. When collectors compete in registry sets, they fight for the finest known example of each date and mint. Population reports show that very few 1970 D nickels exist in the highest grades with full steps intact. That scarcity fuels bidding wars. Real auction results prove it. High in 1970, D full steps nickels have crossed the block for thousands of dollars. Not hype, not rumors. Documented sales history. Let's make this practical so you can check your coins tonight. First, confirm the date reads 1970. Second, flip the coin over and make sure there's a D mint mark to the right of Monticello. Third, examine the steps with at least a 5x to 10x magnifier. You want 5 or 6 distinct, clean lines with no heavy nicks cutting across them. Fourth, inspect Jefferson's portrait. The hair above his ear should be sharp and detailed. The cheek should show smooth, original luster. Fifth, look closely at the D, mint mark for signs of repunching, extra metal, or doubling. Sixth, check the lettering in God We Trust and Liberty for doubled die characteristics. Strong doubling can add $50 to several $100 depending on condition. Seventh, inspect the rim. A crisp, squared rim often indicates a stronger strike. Raised blobs could signal a cut error. Eighth, tilt the coin under light. Look for strong cartwheel luster. A bright, uncirculated coin is far more valuable than a dull, worn one. Now let's talk numbers. A heavily circulated 1970 D nickel, 5 to 25 cents. A nice uncirculated example, $10 to $50. A strong mint state coin with sharp detail, $100 or more. A certified full steps example in high grade, thousands. A top population registry coin, potentially well over $5,000. That's the leap from ordinary change to life-changing value. And here's the truth that should excite you. Unlike ultra-rare 1800s coins locked away in vaults, 1970 D nickels are still everywhere. They're in bankrolls, in estate collections, in jars that haven't been touched in decades. Hidden treasure doesn't always sparkle. Sometimes it looks old, dirty, and completely forgettable. But knowledge transforms the ordinary into big money. You now know about full steps. You know about RPM varieties. You know about die cracks, cuds, and off-center strikes. And that knowledge could lead you straight to a life-changing value coin. So tonight, before you ignore that pile of nickels, take a closer look. Pull out every 1970 D you can find. Check the steps. Study the mint mark. Examine the rim. Because somewhere out there, a 1970 D Jefferson nickel is waiting to shock its owner. And here's the cliffhanger. What if the next one you examine turns out to be one of the finest known full steps examples, worth more than your monthly mortgage payment? You won't know unless you look. If you love uncovering hidden treasure and discovering big money coins hiding in everyday change, make sure you subscribe and stay with us. The next coin we reveal might be even more shocking, and it could already be sitting in your pocket right now.